Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. I'm Sean Duhamel. Today's Friday, March 4th. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining with us again this week. This week, I'm going to focus primarily on the announcement yesterday of the plan design and premium contribution rates for the coming fiscal year by the States Group Insurance Commission, and I have some relatively good news to share on that front. But before I do so, I just want to spend a few moments addressing the growing crisis and tragedy that's occurring in Europe with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. All of us, I think, have been watching with complete shock and horror of what's going on. We have been hearing from a number of members over the past week asking questions and wanting to know what's happening with your pension funds and what steps can be taken to make sure that your retirement money and your pension funds are in no way invested in Russia and can no way go to benefit Putin and his regime. And I know that State Treasurer Deb Goldberg is also concerned about this. We have been in contact with her. I've spoken with the Treasurer directly. She has taken steps along with the Prim Board to identify what, if any, investments that the Prim Board has in anything related to Russia. And while they have no direct investments that would be fall under any of the sanctions that are taking place, they did identify $140 million or so of various investment holdings that had some relationship or crossover with Russia. And while that is a very, very small portion of the $100 billion plus Prim Board or PRIT fund that's managed by the Prim Board, as a number of you have pointed out to us, not 1 cent of retiree money in any way, shape, or form should be going to benefit the government of Russia or Putin or any of his oligarchs. And that's why this week we have joined a growing number of state officials, including Treasurer Goldberg, who support divesting from Russia. And we are supporting legislative action to give the Treasurer and the Prim Board the authority to divest. And I want to make it clear that the way that the pension law is structured, the Treasurer herself does not have the legal authority to make the decision to divest in anything. She's a fiduciary. The Prim Board members are fiduciaries. They have to abide by the law and invest accordingly. That's why we are supporting efforts to give them the authority and give the Treasurer the authority as the chairperson of Prim to make those decisions to divest from Russia. We applaud State Senator Walter Timilty for the action he took earlier this week of filing initial legislation that is now under consideration before the legislature to give the Treasurer in Prim that type of authority. And we also applaud those legislators who have spoken out on this issue. We join everybody's concern. It's a horrifying situation. We have countless innocent civilians and children being murdered right now in the Ukraine, and this is a small step in terms of how we see things to take to send a unified message that this is not okay and this shall not stand. But with that, let me pivot to a little bit more optimistic news and good news. As I mentioned at the outset, the state GIC met just yesterday morning at their March 3rd meeting. They approved the staff recommendations for plan design for the coming fiscal year. That's fiscal year 23. And as was anticipated, there are no significant changes in plan design by the GIC for the coming fiscal year. So what that means is that the co-payments and the deductible that have been in place now for the past 4 years will remain in place for the final year of the 5-year contract cycle that the GIC is currently undergoing. This is really good news for our members as far as we're concerned. The out-of-pocket costs are high enough, and in some cases too high already. We certainly do not support any further increases in out-of-pocket costs. So this is really good news. Secondly, the GIC voted to approve the premium contribution rates for the coming year. And that's the monthly cost of your insurance premiums. Now, the bad news is that these rates or these costs are going up a little bit. But it's not as bad as we had anticipated. And I know that probably didn't come out the right way, not as bad. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, what it means is quite simply, if you are enrolled in the Medicare, any of the Medicare supplemental plans that are offered by the GIC, across all of the Medicare sup plans, the average monthly increase is 1.8% of the total premium. Now, the majority of our members, the vast majority of our members who are eligible and enrolled in Medicare, are enrolled in the Unicare Optional Medicare Extension Plan, the OME plan. Over 75,000 retirees participate in the OME plan. So by far, this is the most popular plan out of all of the plans offered by the GIC. The increase under the Unicare OME plan is 1.2%. Now, obviously, we would prefer to have no increases in insurance premiums. In fact, it would be wonderful to see a decrease in the amount of money you're required to pay for your health insurance. But I think all of us, understand that in most cases that's just not going to be possible. And when we're looking at the drastic increase that we saw for this year in the Medicare Part B premium, we were anticipating and expecting something far worse than 1.2%. So thank you, Unicare, for the job that you continue to do to manage these insurance products, and you do a great job on behalf of our members. And it really was a pleasant surprise today that this was not as drastic as we were anticipating it being. Now, for the non-Medicare plans, unfortunately, the increases are a little bit higher than what we're seeing on the Medicare side. Across all of the GIC's non-Medicare plans, the average increase is 6.2%. However, for the Unicare Basic plan, the increase is 3%, so half of the GIC average. And again, for retirees, the Unicare products tend to be the most popular plans for our members. And the reason for that, on top of it being a really robust freedom of choice plan, it also gives our members who either live outside of Massachusetts or travel frequently or snowbirds and go south for the winter, it gives you the freedom and the ability to have your health insurance follow you anywhere in the world and you're going to be covered. Where some of the other managed care plans or the HMO plans, they do not have that same flexibility. So remember, these percentage increases are the percentage increase on the total cost of the plan. Thankfully, our members are not paying the total cost of the plan. You're paying your portion of that cost. So if you're a state retiree, depending on when you retired, your portion is either going to be 10%, 15%, or 20%, again, depending on when you retired. At the local level, your insurance contribution rate is set by whichever city or town you happen to retire from. Oftentimes, if the community is utilizing the Public Employee Committee, the PEC process in coalition bargaining, those rates at times can be set through that process of negotiating with the retirees and the active employee unions, coming up with rates that work for everybody. But it's really a hodgepodge at the local level. But at the end of the day, those municipal rates are set at the municipal level and are not subjected to decisions made at the state level. Now, the dental plan, the rates for the retiree pay-all dental plan, unfortunately, are going up a little bit. For an individual plan, the new cost will be $28.79 a month, and for a family plan, the new cost will be $69.36 a month. Again, this is a retiree pay-all plan, meaning that you pay 100% of the premium. This plan has been in existence since 2002, and believe it or not, the rates being charged for the coming fiscal year 23, are lower than what was charged back in 2002. So by and large, the costs under the retiree dental plan have been very stable. It is popular with members. We realize that it is not something, it's not a traditional insurance plan that pays the way that a traditional insurance plan would be for your treatment. But it is something that does take some of the sting out of, no pun intended, of dental care. It does cover some of the costs, and it also offers a lower cost in terms of out-of-pockets, ends up being discounted through the MetLife dental plan, but it's something that we're going to continue to work with the GIC to improve those benefits over time, but it just works differently than traditional health insurance. Now, one last point with the GIC, or really two more points in terms of all of this. Under the GIC, open enrollment begins the second week of April, lasts through the first week of May. So if you are, for whatever reason, interested in changing insurance providers through the GIC, or if you're not currently part of the GIC's retiree dental plan, that gives you the opportunity during open enrollment to make those types of changes or enroll in the plan. It also gives you the opportunity to speak with representatives from the insurance companies and GIC staff to have any questions that you may have answered at that time. And finally, all of this information and the specific rates per plan will be published in our upcoming May edition of The Voice, which will be going to the printer at the end of this month, and it will arrive in your mailboxes by the middle of May. We're going to try to get it out a little bit earlier this time around, knowing that we have all of this health insurance information contained in the newsletter. We want to get it to you as early as possible so you can utilize that in terms of making the decision if you want to make any changes to your benefits. Open enrollment at the local level will also be occurring throughout the spring. Reach out to your city or town hall personnel department and keep an eye on your mail. Any information about your insurance will be mailed to you regardless of where you're retired from. And finally, the GIC is about to enter into its procurement process for the next fiscal year, fiscal 24. All of the health insurance plans and the pharmaceutical plans are up for contract renewal going into FY24. So this is going to be a very important period of time. It's something we are watching very, very closely, and we'll be reporting back to you as things develop over the coming months. Once the GIC releases the procurement, the RFR, sometime probably later in April or early May, we're going to go for a bit of a news blackout period where we're not going to have new information as the insurance providers submit their bids. But once we get into late October, November, and certainly into December, we will have information at that point in time that we can share with you. That way there are no surprises, and we're going to continue to have input in this process. But with that, I'm going to log off for today. Thank you so much for joining with us again, and I will be back to you next Friday with your weekly update. Take care and be safe.